In a world full of negative people. Hey man, I'm just trying to be a positive guy, a positive farmer, a positive outfitter. This is the Shark Farmer Podcast with your host, Rob Sharkey. Whatever.
Hey, welcome again to the Shark Farmer Podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Rob Sharkey, and today we're going to go up to Saskatchewan, Tufnell, Saskatchewan. We're going to talk with Dixon Delor. You might know him as Quick Dick McDick. How you doing, Dixon?
Rob, I'm good, man. How about you?
Good. Now, I mean, like if your neighbor stopped by and talked to you, is he calling you Quick Dick or Dixon?
Well, it depends. It's changed a lot in the last couple of years. I've always just been Dixon around here, and everybody that had the unpleasant experience of knowing me when I was growing up and going to school with me still just call me Dixon. But a lot of people, actually, it's not Quick Dick anymore. For some reason, they've abbreviated it down to Quick is my new name now.
Yeah.
You're walking down Main Street, Tufnell, and everyone's like, hey, Quick, how's it going? I'm like, hey, good. Nice to see you guys. You know?
I could see that. That's okay, isn't it?
I think it's fine as long as your girlfriend's not calling you that. There's no issues in the world, Rob. You can just keep steady as she goes, right?
I don't get it.
That's okay. Well, they're jokes. You'll get them eventually.
Where is Tufnell in the great province of Saskatchewan?
So if anybody knows Saskatchewan, we're central eastern Saskatchewan, but we're about 3 hours pretty much straight east of Saskatoon. I think that's the only city in Saskatchewan anybody really knows other than Regina.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think Mick Jagger made that one famous when he did a concert there one year. But other than that, that's our two biggest towns, and the rest of them only residents of Saskatchewan know them, and it's mostly for the crimes and different things that happen there. So no, it's all good, you know.
I'm a medicine hat guy myself.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
The Gas City, hey?
Or Swift Current.
Speedy Creek, love it. Hey, okay, you do know Saskatchewan towns, and I'm impressed, man.
A lot of forced Saskatchewan trivia. My old podcast host, Leslie Kelly.
Leslie, yeah, of course. Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? Actually, I was just over in her hometown here the other day. I was over in good old Watrous, Saskatchewan, because that's the closest place you can go to upgrade a vehicle. And my go-to-town truck decided it didn't want to be a go-to-town truck anymore. So.
All right, Dixon, I got to roll into my ad. Is that okay?
That's no problem, man.
All right. Have you ever heard of Becks Hybrid?
No.
Yeah, they are not up in your area. They're mainly corn, soybeans, but you guys are up in the world of canola and flax, aren't you?
You got her, yeah. Lots of canola, a little bit of flax, lots of pulses up in this neck of the woods too, lentils, peas, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, they won't do you any good, but I'll go ahead with the ad. The thing about Becks is they do a lot of research, and they've done a lot of research that this upcoming planting season might be important. They've got the replant and delayed planting guide. They understand unpredictability of weather and planting at times can be a source of... see, that's marketing talk. Here, I'll translate it for you. Basically, when it's May 20th and you've only got half your corn in and it's still a little muddy and they're calling for rain the rest of the week, they're going to help you do less stupid things. You can go there. You can download their PFR. It has all the research because they've done it. They planted it later, and they see like how much better or worse it is. You can go on there and you can do like the little SR codes. You know what those are, Dixon?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. You scan them with the phone and then they take you to where you need to be in the cloud, on the web there. Yeah.
They take you to a YouTube video so you don't have to read. I'm guessing that's something that you and I would be more in favor of.
It's the best thing that's ever happened is YouTube. Well, obviously because there's some guy named Quick Dick on there, but the second thing is you can do anything. They can make you a genius at anything, right?
Well, this is a perfect example. And you don't have to be just growing Becks seeds to do this. Anybody can go on there and download their practical farm research. It's not just the delayed and replant, but come on. I've done it. I've gone in there to a bean field that wasn't coming up, and I went out there with the agronomist, and they're like, replant the whole thing. And I did, and everything came up then, so I had like twice the population. They've done research on that. They can help you. So if you want to go check them out, Dixon, go to Becks.com.
Becks.com. I'm all over it, man.
Yeah.
I'm putting that on my list of websites to visit. So far, that's the first PG-13 one I can get to. So.
Okay, that's good. I wanted to impress you, Dixon, because I know you're a farmer, but yet you are a businessman entertainer, and I wanted to do a good ad in front of you.
Hey, I was impressed, man. Have you ever thought of a career in that? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe you already did it, eh?
Thought about it. Someday it might work out. All right. You're farming up there, but you spent your early years in the oil and gas field. Is that right?
Yeah, it's true. I grew up on a farm here. It's a community pasture. It's like a federal government grazing lease that was developed way back in the dirty 30s for drought relief. Yeah, I grew up there raising cattle, and when I graduated school, like there kind of wasn't enough to do for a young guy like myself around here. So yeah, I went and worked northern Alberta I was up there for 19 years, and actually, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the show Ice Road Truckers in good old Canada here. I got to be one.
You were one of those guys? You drove a semi over a frozen lake?
Frozen lake, frozen river, frozen muskeg, you name it, I've drove on it, and
I don't know what
that
is.
Freaking cool, man.
A muskeg?
Muskeg, yeah, they freeze it just like a big. It's a big sponge like peat moss, and you can't really build roads on it, so they just build like feet and feet and feet of ice on it. Then you can haul as heavy of a load on it as you want. It's actually one of the cooler things you'll ever find. But have you ever seen the show Ice Road Truckers?
I have. I hate to admit that I binge watch that show.
I'm about to break your heart. It's not as exciting as they make it.
What?
Like they're like, oh man, he's gonna climb a hill and he's gonna have to chain up. And when I first started watching that show, I was like, well, yeah, no kidding, he's gonna have to chain up. It takes like 2 seconds, put chains on, and then you climb the hill. Like, it's really not as riveting as they say it is, you know. And when you get on all these roads, we're gonna have to do some quick math here, but max speed when you get on these ice roads is 30 kilometers an hour. So I'm not sure what that translates to in Imperial. I think that's somewhere around like 17 mile an hour.
It's pretty much walking. Yeah.
It's basically walking backwards. And when you get doing something like that, I can tell you doing a 3,000 kilometer trip can take quite a bit of time.
But isn't there some science behind that? I'm an expert because I did watch a show. But if you get going too fast, you actually push the water under the ice, or was that all bull?
That's right. No, see, that part's true. If you're on like a waterborne road, then you can actually make a wave underneath the ice. When you come to shore, that wave actually can hit the shore and come back, crack the ice, and then you wind up underneath the ice, right?
Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, you don't want that. That's definitely a negative part of it, right? But if you get on the muskeg, because there's no water underneath the muskeg, it's just frozen ground. You get that going. Then the reason they keep you 30 kilometers an hour is because most of the time you get your tire chains on, and you'll actually completely trash the road.
Okay. I still don't know what a musk oxen egg is, but we're going to go on. Were you ever scared of, like, falling through?
No, not falling through. I don't know why. I guess the guy maybe should have been, but I never was. You know, you kind of hopefully leave the safety of yourself up to the people that are the engineers on the road. But there's been some times in some hills, like we'd get back into the backside of this place called like Tumbler Ridge in British Columbia. There was some pretty crazy mountains that you'd go up, and sometimes you'd go up those things in the wintertime with a couple of chains and some tow tractors in the front of you. And that's the one time I can think I've ever been really scared with a hand on the door ready to jump out of the truck. I got towed up hauling a big coil unit to what seemed like the top of a mountain, but it was the middle of the night, so I had no idea what it looked like in the daytime. Mm-hmm. And they towed me up with a couple of big dozers. Well, they had a dozer and a tow tractor. And by the time we got up there, we had a little bit of spin-out action on the way up, and we got to the lease. And the operator gets out of the tractor, and he's shaking, and he lights a cigarette. And I was like, what's going on, man? He's like, that was scary. We almost went down that hill. I was like, yeah, we made it. He's like, okay, no problem. And I couldn't figure out what the big deal was. So I went to bed, obviously in the sleeper of the truck. The crew started doing their job with the unit that I brought in there. I woke up in the morning and the sun's shining. It's a beautiful day, and I go to the edge of the location to where the toilet is there to do my business. And I look down the road that we came up in the dark, and I'm glad I was near the toilet because I had to get in there as fast as I could. It was sheer death off of both sides of this road, and I just couldn't see it at night, so I knew none the wiser. And now I realize
it's probably
that
better.
Operator was shaking. Yeah. So I was scared when we went out of there. I was terrified going down there because they hook everything onto the back of you so you don't slide out of control down it. I'd say that's probably the scariest I've ever been behind the wheel of a truck.
Oh. Now, that's a young man's game up there, isn't it? Working the oil and gas fields?
It is, unless there's a couple of, older guys that have gone through a divorce and lost their house and they just live in a truck and go truck in the oil field. There's some of those guys out there, too. I love them. They're deadly guys. They're usually your hardest workers, and they got a really good attitude.
And they don't care if they go down a mountain or not.
They couldn't care. Just as long as they got a Demorier king-size cigarette on the way down, they don't care. Yeah, it's all good.
So what was the catalyst? What brought you back home?
It was, it kind of hit a point where I was just kind of, I peaked in my career a little bit, and I was at a smaller company, and there was just a few personal things going on in life with relationships and a couple other things, and kind of some politics of the place I was at. It was just time. Like, I just kind of felt like my whole life had been just consumed by trucking and work, which was fine. I'd made a great living for myself, and I'd had a great time, and basically been paid to see the entire country of Canada through the windshield of a truck. Like, I mean, I couldn't imagine anything better. And I was transitioning to a different job in the Moomba Desert in Australia. And I was waiting on a work visa. Yeah, I was waiting on a work visa, and I came home to Saskatchewan for a couple of months while I was waiting for this all to go through, because I've always had my land and my place here in Saskatchewan. I always just rented all of it out. And so I came home just to do some rentals on the house, and got hanging out at home, and just kind of fell in love with being back at home, and started asking myself kind of the age-old question of like, well, why have I spent so many years trying to get away from this place when it's maybe the place where I'm the happiest, And so I just kind of started deciding that I was just going to stay home, and ran into a guy that I'd gone to school with, who was a fairly big operator around here with cattle and farming, and I was giving him a hand for the first little bit while I was home, and then before you know it, I had my land back, and I was getting my own cattle back, and back into farming, and away we go now, right? It's crazy how it all works so fast like that.
I mean, it had to be a little intimidating, though, because, I mean, agriculture is not the most stable, especially when you're starting out. And here you were. I mean, you were leaving a good job. Apparently, you were going to go play with some dingoes, and that was probably a good job. It had to be scary, right?
Like, to a certain extent, yes, Rob. But, like, I don't know. I've never really been afraid of doing something. Dad always taught me, if you're going to go do something, just go all in and do it and make it work, right? Which, I mean, it's easier said than done lots of times, but it just felt right, For a lot of years, what I was doing just didn't feel like I was doing the right thing anymore. And then all of a sudden, when I was back where I grew up, and a lot of my friends that I'd gone to school with had come and moved back home, and it just felt right. So I just kept doing it. Ever since I left that job in the oil field, I've always just kind of been like, do what feels right. Don't force it. And it's kind of worked out. The universe has kind of pushed me in the right direction, I guess, if that's the way you want to look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, and even like with the whole quick tick thing, like, I mean, me coming home and starting to farm, in all reality, just kind of happened by accident. Like, it was a series of kind of unrelated events that all of a sudden it's just like, hey, well, I guess I'm back here and this is what I'm doing because it feels right. You know what I mean? And honestly, I think that's the first time I've ever said this out loud. It feels weird to say even, like I kind of didn't plan for it to happen. It just kind of happened, right?
Well, I think there's a mindset of being able to work, right? When you have someone that's not afraid to put in work, hard physical work, that you can pretty much make anything work. Some things obviously going to be better than others. So I don't know. You kind of strike me as that kind of guy.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that was maybe as I was running a manager's position when I actually left the job that I was at. And that was one of the biggest struggles that I was having there is to try and find somebody that's just going to, I don't need a lot from you. I just need you to come and work. That's all I need you to do. I'll organize the work, you do the work, and we can all work together. Yeah, exactly. And it kept turning into a harder and harder thing to find people that wanted to do it, And when I came home and ran across Mark, the guy that I farm with here now, he was kind of in the same shape. He was trying to find somebody to help him that was actually going to, show up for work in the morning and do a job. And, farming, I mean, there's times where you don't have to be here at 6 a.m. or on a Sunday kind of thing, but there's lots of times you're planting, harvesting. Right now we're calving, it's not a question of whether are we working tomorrow or not. It's a question of what time are we getting here and what do we need to get done? I think if you can get past that, do I have to work tomorrow? You can get a lot of stuff accomplished with a lot of like-minded people. You know what I mean?
That's very well said. So what all are you raising now? I mean, you had the cattle. Are you raising crops too?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. So we do, we've got about 400 head here total. 350 is part of our cow-calf operation. So right now we're right in the middle of calving season. We got a fresh dump of about 8 inches of snow last night, so that's why you can hear this 8770 growling in the background here as I try and plow the alleyway out so we can feed them. Yes, we do calve out about 350 head here, and then we've got 4,200 acres of grain land that we farm here. So we'll do wheat, barley, oats, canola, peas. That's about it, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, are you enjoying it?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know how to put it into words of how much I like it. You know, I came from the cattle side. When I grew up as a kid, we didn't have a lot to do with the grain side of things. We grew up predominantly on a cattle operation. To be able to come in here and actually start doing things on the grain side with Mark, the guy that I farm with here now, is it's been a really awesome and unique learning experience. Just especially, you know, residue management and crop rotations and different nutrients and stuff. We dealt mostly with forage crops, with what I used to do as a kid and growing up when I had cattle with my dad, and now doing the more technical grain side of things with where, you know, technology and everything is at right now. It's it's like drinking from a fire hose. You know, it's just we're just in such a cool time right now with where technology's at and a lot of the different precision ag things that are going on, different inputs. It's so cool. Like if there's a day goes by where you don't learn something, you probably haven't worked hard enough for the day, because there's just a nonstop plethora of information that you can absorb, and I'm kind of addicted to stuff like that. Like I like learning stuff, you know.
There was something that Emily found out about you that was absolutely no surprise to me. You used to rodeo.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You seem like one of those.
I rodeoed. Actually, I high school rodeoed right through high school, and I was one of the only kids in my school that actually like rodeoed, and I was like almost one of the outcasts for having. And believe it or not, you're in Central Saskatchewan. Like I was almost more of an outcast for being like one of the kids that wore a cowboy hat all the time and cowboy boots and jeans and everything. Like there wasn't a lot of kids in my school that did that.
That surprises me. I would have figured it'd been more rural.
I know, right? Yeah, and it's a very rural town where I grew up, and everyone. It was so weird. Like basketball teams and football teams and hockey teams, they'd all, you know, leave on Thursdays or Fridays to go to tournaments, and nobody would think twice about it. And like I started having issues with my principal that I was leaving on Fridays to go do high school rodeo. He's like, well, you can't be just leaving school to go and do this rodeo thing.
Watch
and I'm
me.
like, well, why not? And he's like, well, I mean, you're missing classes. I was like, well, the football team left last Thursday and went, well, it's different. I was like, well, how is it different? You know? So taught me to stick up for myself at a young age, I guess, right?
Were you a good student?
I was an honors student, man.
Says a lot about Canada.
Dude, I graduated. I was the valedictorian of my class.
Really?
I mean, yeah, granted, it was only a class of about 40 people, but I mean, still, like a win is a win. You know what I mean? But yeah, no,
that's really good. I'm impressed.
School always came natural to me. I didn't really do a lot of studying. I was, you know, it was just good. I enjoyed being at school, and I don't know, that kind of chased me through my life. Before I graduated initially, before I went and worked oil field, my goal was to, I was going to go I wanted to be a fighter pilot in the Royal Canadian Air Force, believe it or not, Rob. And I
didn't know you guys had planes.
Well, we've only got 6 of them left, I think, and now they don't even train pilots here anymore.
Do they have propellers?
Federal government. Some of the jet trainers don't anymore, but they do have turboprops that you start off on, right? And then the afterburners are actually 3 Canada geese that throw a tow rope behind them, and yeah,
whatever works. I guess you guys aren't getting invaded, so something's working up there.
Well, hopefully not. Well, if anyone's ever fought the Canadian geese, they'd know better than to try and invade Canada, because they can be very vicious. That's why they get the name Cobra Chicken, right?
They are a miserable animal. I mean, I love to hunt them, but I mean, they are just, that's another story.
I've never heard a Cobra Chicken. That's funny. I've never heard somebody call them a Cobra Chicken.
They got all sorts of things up there. Bunny hugs and gitches, yeah.
Yeah, gitch, gotch, all the above. I want to actually, this has gone into my live comedy show. I actually, because I'm some kind of a public figure in Saskatchewan, I'm supposed to publicly defend the term bunny hug, that we call it a bunny hug, and I refuse to.
It's literally just you. It's one province in the entire world that calls it that.
I think bunny hug is a ridiculous name for something. Have you ever tried to hug a bunny?
Not lately.
Especially wild ones in Saskatchewan. They're terrible. They're like cobra chickens. They'll scratch you and bite at you. I tried to hug one the other day, and it scratched one of my nipples almost right off. You got to be careful around those things. So I don't know who coined this bunny hug phrase, but we need to have a word with them. You know what I mean?
It's probably that John Steinbeck of Mice and Men, when that big guy would he'd pet the rabbits too hard and kill them.
Guaranteed, that's what it would be. Actually, I did a deep dive into the research of why it's called the bunny hug, and apparently because when Saskatchewan was first settled, it was so barren and cold. The only thing that the settlers could find to hunt and trap was infestation of rabbits. And so they started making coats out of the pelts from the rabbits. And henceforth, they called it a bunny hug because it was like you were being hugged by the coat of a rabbit during the cold winters.
Now, see, that puts some manliness into it anyway.
It does, but I mean, the embarrassing thing is we're like, hey, look at this great bunny hug that we came up with, and it's going to be, like a point of pride for us for the rest of our lives. And our neighbors in Alberta actually just wound up doing this thing called building a house and putting a fire in it. And they were like, yeah, that's actually easier to keep warm doing it that way than
it's a little disturbing. Oh, we're hugging our dead rabbits.
Right? Yeah, like it's morbid. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Like, thank goodness it wasn't a rat infestation, or we'd be calling them a rat hug. You know what I mean? Bunch of big yellow teeth hugging us there. Yeah, I can't imagine.
How's the snow plowing going?
Well, I'm playing the dicey game here, Rob, of because it obviously it thawed before it snowed here, right? So I'm playing that dicey game of leave as much gravel on the road as I can and still try and get all the snow off of it. You know what I mean? And I'm failing miserably.
Do you have to push snow around, let's say, a more seasoned farm wife that is not going to be in the mood to have gravel in her grass?
I steer clear, so Wendy is Mark's wife here, and I let Mark do the driveway up by the house.
Smart.
Because I don't want to get in the middle of any of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But most of the time, both of them try and get me to do it because it avoids marital conflict that way a little better. You know what I mean? Yeah.
This year was the first year I pushed snow with, I got a new skid steer, John Deere 333, so it was a lot bigger, a lot more powerful. And like one of the first times, because I have to push it off the driveway, into the yard a little bit. Man, I dug right down for like 4 feet, just solid black dirt.
It's because you got a new cutting edge on it, right?
It was. I didn't even know I did it. You know how you're pushing all that, and then you get up to the pile, and then when you dump it, there's black stuff in it. It's like, oh,
black. Yeah, you're like, oh. Yeah, we get this 8770. That's what I'm plowing with here with this big 16-foot Dagelman blade on it. And it got to the point where, there was no cutting edge left on it. So we're like, okay, we got a welder and got the new cutting edge put on it. Everything looks great. It's fantastic. And I'm all happy. I get this thing whistled up, and I'm going to make my first plow. Well, with the old blade, you'd put it down as hard as you could just to try and make a difference in the world. So I did the same thing. And like I say, before you know it, you're just rolling this 6-foot roll of just black dirt, and you're like, oh no. And then the old farmers, we go and help the neighbors every now and then, and you go and do their driveway, and they're out there and they're like, hey, you got to be really careful when you're plowing the driveway, because it's taken me 10 years to steal that much gravel for the yard off of the road out in front of from the county there, so don't push it into the ditch. Right? Yeah, very hot commodity, that gravel.
Oh my gosh. All right, you did mention the comedy. So how long have you been doing that?
Well, like almost 2.5 years, I guess it'd be here now. And it's just like the character Quick Dick. Like, it started by accident. I had a local ag society here was doing a fundraiser, and they were like, hey, would you come and like be Quick Dick at the fundraiser? And I was like, well, like, what do you mean? They're like, well, I don't know, just come and do you. I was like push play on YouTube videos or what? They're like, no, like do some of your YouTube videos live. So I was like, okay, well, I kind of came up with it started out as 45 minutes of what I guess now is a stand-up comedy routine. And I started doing it, and it just kind of turned into this comedy. It's like a comedy special. And I, I grew up in the age of Ron White, Bill Engvall, Dane Cook, some great comedians. And we've got some really great Saskatchewan comedians here, Kelly Taylor, Jody Peters. And I never really, considered myself a comedian. And I would just go do these fundraisers, and I do them for crowds of about, anywhere from 300 to 400 to, some bigger shows I've gone to about 800 to 1,000. Like, it's literally an hour and a half, and it's like a little comedy special, and I never really thought much of it until one day somebody asked me, like, how long have you been a comedian? And I'm like, well, I don't think I'm a comedian. They're like, you just did stand-up comedy on stage for an hour and a half, dude. You're a comedian. Like, all of a sudden, I'm just like, oh, I never really saw it coming. So it's just a blast. And I try and do it, in small towns where everybody has a hard time getting entertainment to come in for fundraisers and whatnot. And I absolutely love it. Like, if I had to pick, I would stop doing YouTube. And I think I might even trade stand-up comedy for farming. I love it so much.
Here's the thing. I mean, you were very funny online, your YouTubes, and just like your earlier stuff of the Ben Cock video, I think was probably one of my absolute favorites. But
you and my mom would disagree on that one, but go on. Yeah.
So doing that and doing stand-up are just two absolutely different animals. There's a lot of people that from very successful in social media that have tried to go that route, and it just did not translate.
Right? Yeah.
Did you know that going into it, that it was the two different ways of looking at entertaining?
Kind of, but I wasn't afraid. I've never been afraid to be in front of a crowd, and I think it's what I like about stand-up comedy versus doing online productions, because like you guys will even do it here with your podcast, or like when I do a video, if there's something that goes in that you don't want on it, you can just kind of edit and cut it out and switch it around and make it better, and then away you go. I like the vulnerability of doing stand-up comedy in front of a crowd, because if you're bombing, you got to change it. You have to do something on the fly to make it work. You can't just stand there, just keep doing the same thing and try and make them laugh with the same jokes. You got to change it up. If somebody heckles you from the crowd, you got to be on your feet, on your toes, and ready to, reciprocate. And I like that, and you see it real time when you do uploads on the internet. I mean, yeah, you get, like, sometimes I'll get a lot of views and a lot of likes and a lot of comments. And I mean, that's great. I appreciate it. But there's something more rewarding about knowing that what you're doing is funny and resonating with your crowd in real life, because you can see it out of people. You can see it in their faces, their body language, their laughter, and people coming up to me after a show being like, I didn't realize our lives were that funny until you did half of your bits. Like, I've got a bit that I do on small town curling rinks, and everywhere I go, everyone's like, you described our curling rink to a T, and we didn't realize it was that funny, So it's just an awesome chance to resonate with people, right? And when you get a crowd together in a small hall doing stuff like that, the pandemic took a lot of this stuff away from us, and to have it back and people getting together and shoulder to shoulder and laughing and having a good time, it's what small towns are all about. And that's what Quick Dick's all about, is small towns, and so it's just a blast. I absolutely love it. It's very, very fun. Well, but I'd never be able to quit farming, because most of my material comes from farming, right? So,
well, once you win someone over in a live event, right? It's different doing something really funny online, but once you win somebody over in real life, it seems like those are the ones that actually become like a fan, a true fan.
100%. You're so right. Yeah. And there's, lots of people. I'm spoiled, because when I go to my shows, most people that come to my shows, they know what they're getting into going into it, right? So it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel almost kind of thing, because I know what kind of comedy they're there for. And it's just a matter of bringing it in a manner that kind of surprises them a little bit. And like you say, once I've got a lot of fans that come to my shows, but they're super fans when the show is done and you're gone. And I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to do it. It's good for them. Everybody gets out, no matter what they got going on in their lives. They've got an hour and a half where they can forget about it, and they can just come and laugh and have a good time. And that's one of the most important things that people need in this world. And for me, it's rewarding for me, because it charges my batteries, to be there and know that your comedy's hitting and everyone's having a good time. It kind of fills up my tank to be able to keep doing, YouTube productions and all this other stuff. Because eventually, like, that can get a little bit draining too. You know, when you're calving at 4 a.m. and you're like, man, I need to get an upload done for tomorrow yet. You know what I mean? It helps to charge the batteries when you do stuff like that. So I'm really lucky to have the opportunity to go do it, and obviously, you know, raise money for a lot of great causes. So
absolutely. All right, you brought up a good point with your comedy. People up there know what they're getting into. Are you? How do I say this? How do I ask this nicely? If you were to give your routine in California, do you think it would be as well received?
I know where you're headed with it. No, it's not. You know, in Metro Vancouver here in Canada or downtown Toronto, I don't think a lot of people would appreciate my man bun jokes and a few other things. But you know, it's definitely for an audience, but not the whole show. Like, there's parts of the show that I get a little bit political, but not too much, because there's just too much of that, you know, all over the world, I think. But a lot of it's tailored to rural life and small towns kind of thing, right? I've done this show in bigger cities. I've done this show in Saskatoon, which is our biggest city in Saskatchewan, and it hit. But the thing with it is it was a smaller venue, and it was during crop production show, so it was a bunch of farmers that were in town. So we might have been in the city, but it wasn't a city crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, I think that's okay going into it. And that's kind of where I'd like to take this show next, is to try and broaden this humor out a little bit, so that you could go to a crowd that's maybe never even been on a farm before, and you could make jokes about it, right? One of the ones where I'm trying to get a bit together for this new show that I'm going to be running here this summer, and once we're done harvest into the winter, where I make fun of when rural people come to the city, the strange things that you do in the city that we just don't understand, kind of thing, like how everybody goes to work at 7:30 in the morning and it's a traffic jam, you know? And you're like, why? Like, why are you guys all going at the same time? You know, why doesn't one place open at, 7:30 and one place open at 9, and it could just be like a steady stream of traffic all day? Everyone's like, no, because we have to be open at 8. Well, why? Everyone else is open at 8. Who exactly is it that you're opening for? If everyone's rushing to get to work, who's coming through the door? You know what I mean? Or land. Like, when you go to the city and, like, here we are, we're trying to farm every corner that we possibly have and, clean up this slough and get this rock pile moved and buried and everything. Whereas in the city, all you got to do is you just need to buy 1 acre and you can make a fortune off of it. You paint a bunch of lines in it and put a machine there, and people pay you money out of their pockets to park on it.
Genius.
Like, what are we doing? The weather doesn't even matter. It can rain. It can do whatever it wants. People are just going to pay you money and come and park there. And here we are like a bunch of chumps farming,
It's not funny because it's totally not true. You have dipped your toe into the politics. I don't necessarily understand all the provincial stuff up there, and you got Castro's kid, he's running things and that, but you're not afraid to voice your opinion, are you?
No, I'm not. And but I think we live in a world where everyone's got an opinion, which is fine. I mean, we're all allowed to have an opinion, and that shouldn't be an issue. But it's the people with opinions that don't want to hear anyone else's opinions, and instead of them having solid fact-based opinions or being diplomatic about what they say, they just try and say it louder and louder and louder. And that's kind of what, initially started the whole thing off was kind of some oil and gas issues that we were having up in Canada here. And of course, me being an ex-oil and gas guy, I was like, hey, well, I'm going to stand up for my industry. And I did this video called Trains versus Pipelines, which is kind of what really got the whole career sent it into orbit on YouTube kind of thing. But it's just, I try and make points on different topics, that are happening in our country, but I try and do it with a little bit of humor and some cutaway production in a way that people engage and watch and hopefully laugh and have fun with it. So I might be coming across a little bit gruff and swearing kind of thing, but I'm trying to do it in a funny way so that at least if you don't agree with what I'm saying, you can at least have a little bit of a laugh at it anyways, is kind of the goal. Whether I always succeed or not, I don't know. But, it's just we put a lot into politicians and government and put a lot of trust into everybody. And all of a sudden, when a lot of policy that they make is starting to affect you and your bottom line, and even, like my mom and dad, people that are trying to retire that have worked their entire lives, and you have people making bad policy that's making life unaffordable for them. Well, go figure. Yeah, I am going to say something about it, and I'm going to do it unapologetically. And I'm going to do it based in fact. I'm going to do some research before I do it, and then I'm going to try and do it in a funny way that people will listen, and hopefully, I can make a point at the end of the production. And if not, well, at least I tried,
Mm-hmm. Are you using auto steer to push snow?
No, actually, if you can hear it beeping in the back, it's just I don't know how to shut it off. So I just let it beep away.
So you're just like crossing lines. Yeah, honestly, the only way to do it that I know of is you got to unplug the thing, but nobody does. But that sound, it's like all of a sudden I want to start planting corn.
But that would be badass if a guy was so lit that we were actually plowing snow with auto steer. You know what I mean?
I guarantee you somebody is.
The most perfect windrow you have ever seen on the side of the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
If only I could just push a little less gravel into the ditch with it, we would be winning, Somehow I got to be able to have that setting in the GPS.
There's guys that use RTK on their lawnmower. So, I mean, anything is, it's not even a joke.
If it's in your blood, it's in your blood, and you just got to do it. You know what I mean?
I've seen on social media, you are not afraid to let your opinion be known about mental health in agriculture, and that's kind of a taboo subject to some people.
No, I'm not at all afraid to talk about it, Rob. It's kind of honestly, man, that's kind of almost where this character came from. A little bit of the reason, when I was talking earlier about when I left my job up in Grand Prairie, that was a 19-year career, and a lot of that had to do with mental health. The reason that I went. It was just time for a change. I was upset with my life and how things were going, and this character kind of got created as an offshoot to that in a strange way. But the reason that I recognized what I had going on in my life, where I was at and why I needed to make a change is because my dad, now I don't know if you've seen that, we get him in my videos on YouTube every now and then. We call him Big Mustache Al because he's got a massive mustache. And he actually went through a part in his life where my dad was suicidal. And I tell this with his permission, of course.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the lucky ones who didn't become a statistic because he got a very strong wife. My mom, they got help. It wasn't easy. Us boys came home to try and help him out a little bit. It took years to get things right, to get dad to the point where he was back to himself and he was living his best life like he is now. But there was a time in his life where he wanted to kill himself, right? And years after that, my dad, the strongest, toughest guy, cowboy, you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about kind of guy, is the only guy I ever knew. It had turned into a guy where he sat all of us. I got two brothers. He sat all three of us down individually, and he told us his story about how he got to where he was. This is like 10 years afterwards. And it was kind of the final part of his healing process. He sat us down and he told us why it had happened and how he felt like he'd been wrong for a better part of his life, raising us how he did, and how we need to talk more about our feelings. And if we're feeling anxiety or if we have something going on that we can't handle ourselves, it needs to be okay for you to ask help from people. And I don't begrudge the way my dad raised us at all. He raised some pretty successful young guys to grow into men. But it was like he broke a chain that had gone on in his family for years and years and years when he decided to open up to us and talk about this kind of stuff. And later, fast forward, another 15 years after that, there I am up in Grand Prairie, Alberta, experiencing the exact same thing that he had. And had my dad not talked to me about it, there's a really good chance that I might have wound up going down the same path that he did and maybe succeeded at it, So when I kind of realized what had all gone on, and all of a sudden I wound up getting this platform from this character, Quick Dick, I just felt like it'd be pretty important for me every now and then to talk about stuff like that, because everyone watches this Quick Dick guy and expects him to be this big, tough farmer that, nothing can hurt him or nothing can affect him kind of thing, when I'm just as vulnerable as anybody else. And I think it's important to be a little bit of a, hopefully a role model to people that it's okay to talk about stuff every now and then to keep our minds right. And it's a beautiful world, and we all need to be able to experience it. And there's no reason for us to leave it by our own hand. There's lots of people out here that love us and care for us, and we just got to be brave enough to talk sometimes, right?
Yeah, I don't know if agriculture is any different, but it's the industry that I know and have been around. And, it's that kind of whole suck it up, buttercup, and why are you talking about this? And, you've got Leslie up there that, there has always been a lot of pushback. I know it's getting better, and that's due to people like her and yourself and others that aren't afraid to talk about it. But it's something that has to be addressed, because especially us being out there more by ourselves, being more isolated, when things aren't going right, it's easy to start blaming yourself and just going down paths that there's really no reason to go down.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I mean, we got agriculture in Canada. I'm not sure what your guys' statistics are in the States, but agriculture in Canada is one of the highest suicide rate professions in Canada. And I believe it's 4 to 1 men to women that take their own lives here in Canada. And it's so frustrating, because in so many of the situations when it happens, a lot of people that were close to the person that wound up dying, is nobody had any clue that they were suffering, And if anybody would have known that they were, there's all kinds of people that would stop doing what they're doing and come and help. But we've got the stigma that it's embarrassing. We're too embarrassed to ask for help, and that shouldn't be the case. That was one of the things my dad told us, that he's like, I didn't think there'd be anyone that would understand what I was going through or would want to help me. And he's like, when it finally all happened and we found him treatment and we got him help, he's like, you would not believe how many people in the community came to me and were like, hey, we've been there, man. Same thing happened to me. And it's just all of a sudden, when people do start talking about it, you find out how many people are there for a support for you. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of trying to break that down of, hey, it's okay to talk about it. And the same thing, I try and every now and then do it in a funny way, or I'll try and have a funny video, and then halfway through or at the end of it, just try and kind of hit you in the feels a little bit and be like, hey, it's okay to talk about stuff. You know what I mean? And I got a lot of I think the world of my dad, because he's brave enough to even come on that video sometimes and just talk, And when I think of what it would have taken for him to do that, I'll have the respect for my dad to the end of the world, because I know how tough that would have been for him to do, and he probably saved my life by doing it. So if there's any dads out there listening, don't be afraid to sit your boys down and have a talk with them. It might save them,
Or girls.
Or girls, absolutely. Yes, 100%.
So what's next for you? Do you know?
I don't know, man. It's really weird. I guess I don't really have an end game. I've just kind of got a roadmap that I follow. You know what I mean? I got some rules that I follow when I do this stuff. And I'm going to be honest with you, man, I have a really hard time, especially lately. I've had a really hard time juggling the farm and the YouTube channel and the live stuff and the merch and everything. And I'm trying to work at some solutions to farm a little bit of it out and get some help with it. I didn't really think that it was going to last this long or still be a thing. I figured after the pandemic, it would just kind of fizzle out and everybody would go back to, their normal everyday lives. And I mean, I've got comedy shows. I'm booked right until the end of 2024 right now. So yeah, it's just going to keep rocking and rolling. I really want to do more live stuff. And if my YouTube productions take a little bit of a hit because of it, I'd much rather be live in person with people. That's just the kind of person I am. So the more of that I can do, the better. And I mean, there's just that, whether it be politics, whether it be farming, whether it just be what happens in small towns, there is a never-ending plethora of material out there that a guy can use to keep this stuff going. And I mean, as long as people keep watching, I'll keep doing it. If people are getting a kick out of it, I'm more than happy to be the reason that people are laughing through the day. So
I think we need a farm comedy tour. Emily, who would you think? Because I'm thinking we do Quick Dick. How about Farmer Randy? Would you put him in there and his twin brother that doesn't exist?
I don't know.
Totally.
And how about the Tar Heel Farmer?
Yeah.
You three, what do you need? 4 for like a blue collar thing?
I don't even know what the number would be, but I mean, I'm sure we'd get it figured out. All you'd have to do is if one person's going on too long, just, coax them off the stage with a beer. I'll follow a beer anywhere, man.
What about like Carl Armstrong or Andy Pastor? They could carry your luggage. That would be nice.
Well, if Andy was cleaning your luggage, it would probably be clean anyways. So.
I think it'd be a great deal. I think you'd be selling out left and right.
It's a blast. It is. And, it's kind of, it's almost a niche market, There's a huge farming population out there And that was the biggest thing when we did crop production show. I always go to these shows and I just stand at a booth and shake hands and take pictures with people. Well, at crop production, I was like, hey, let's do a show. Let's do a fundraiser. We did it 2 nights after the show, 2 nights in a row. We sold them both out. We raised like $10,000 for Stars Air Ambulance. And everybody gets to come there, crush some beer, and laugh, you know? But, I mean, there is an endless amount of material for farmers to sit there and laugh about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all we can do is look at ourselves.
That's exactly what it is, man. We are a comedy show live. Like, every day is a comedy show.
If people want to find out more about you, find you on social media, websites, all that stuff, where do they go?
So you can search Quick Dick McDick on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok, because I wanted to go to Chairman Mao to have my banking information. And you can find me on Instagram as QD McDick because they wouldn't let me name myself Quick Dick McDick. So
you can't say Quick Dick on Instagram?
Yeah, they wouldn't let me do it. It was the craziest thing. Yeah, huh. So I'm QD McDick there apparently. Yeah.
What if your actual name is Dick?
I know, like my name is Dixon, Dick for short. I've been a dick all my life. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, it's just not fine for me to be one. Yeah, I don't know. Very discriminatory. Yeah, and then I'm a quickdickmcdick.ca. We got a whole bunch of Canadian-made T-shirts, hats, sweaters, bunny hugs, all that good stuff there. And I've got a list of upcoming shows there at the bottom of that one. So yeah, just be careful when you're Googling Quick Dick because it might take you to a website that I'm not associated with whatsoever. So.
Yeah, that's good advice, sir.
Yeah.
Well, Dixon, I'm glad you took some time to talk with us. I know you're busy plowing snow and farming and doing all sorts of stuff. I've really enjoyed watching you over the years. You've been not just entertaining, but you've been positive. That's a rarity in agriculture. So I want to thank you for everything that you've done for all of us.
Well, I appreciate it, my man. Same goes back at you. You know, I watch you all the time, and it's just when you guys reached out to me there, I was like Rob Sharkey, the shark farmer. Oh my God, yeah, I think I'd go on a podcast with him. Yeah, just fanboying for an hour here. So no, appreciate you, man, and always great to chat. Eh? We actually got to get together at one of these farm shows for a real beer in person one of these days.
I think we were supposed to up at the ones that Jeremy was doing, but COVID was There were certain things that I didn't do that I couldn't get in your country. Yeah.
Could you believe that would be one of the things that they let people in this country that have done, aside from that, it will boggle your mind. Yes. I don't know. It's a crazy country we live in, but at least we've got bacon and maple syrup, you know what I mean?
And poutine.
And poutine, exactly.
Dixon, I really appreciate you taking the time. Everybody else, we'll catch you next time.
And thank you for listening to the Shark Farmer Podcast. I am your host, Rob Sharkey. Please visit us at www.sharkyfarms.com. And just search for Shark Farmer to follow me on Twitter.